The valley ahead had a narrow entrance, with dense branches extending from both sides. Amid the piles of rubble, the valley was concealed, giving it a faintly hidden appearance. It was clear that the Thunderstorm squad had put a lot of effort into locating this place. There are indeed quite a number of fire spirit apes inside. Chen, standing a little distance from the entrance, took a light sniff and immediately detected the strong pungent odor. Clearly, there were more fire spirit apes here than Lei Cheng had mentioned. Get ready. Lei Cheng waved his hand, and Lin Zhong and several companions swiftly gathered dry firewood from the surroundings, piling it outside the valley before lighting it. Cover your noses and mouths. Try to hold your breath. Lei Cheng pulled out several dark gray pills from his robe, releasing a strong fragrance that made one feel slightly drowsy. Lin Zhong and the others had already torn cloth strips, dampened them in a nearby stream, and distributed them to everyone. Once everyone was prepared, Lei Cheng tossed the pills into the fire, and the potent fragrance immediately spread. Focus your spiritual energy and blow the smoke into the valley. Lei Cheng shouted softly, taking the lead. His sleeve billowed as a surge of powerful spiritual energy howled out, summoning a strong wind that carried the thick smoke into the valley. Chen and the others followed suit, using their spiritual energy to whip up gusts of wind. Soon, the valley was covered in smoke, and the previously booming ape howls began to fade away. Lei Cheng waited for a moment, listening to the valley's movements, before he breathed a sigh of relief and waved his hand. Move in, stay alert. Let's go. The others, who had been holding back their excitement, nodded eagerly, swiftly darting into the valley. As Chen and the others entered, the valley was shrouded in a mist. Looking around, they saw the ground littered with numerous giant red apes. However, the fire spirit apes were mostly fast asleep, clearly affected by Lei Cheng's potent sedative. The jade spirit tree is deeper in the valley. Hurry, the sedative won't last long. Lei Cheng urged, his speed picking up as he jumped over the sleeping apes and headed deeper into the valley. Chen followed closely behind, but as they neared the valley's depths, a low growl suddenly echoed from the rocks above, followed by the sharp scent of blood and the sight of a massive fire spirit ape charging straight for Xun'er, who was trailing behind Chen. The sudden attack startled Xun'er. In a flurry, she raised her jade hand, and a short sword shot out, enveloped in spiritual energy. It left only a shallow cut on the fire spirit ape's body. Although it caused no significant damage, the sword still managed to block it for a moment. Chen's feet hit the ground with a soft thud. His figure shot forward like a nimble monkey, his hand grasping a sharp dagger that slid out of his sleeve. Wrapped in dark spiritual energy, and with a flash of cold light, he swiftly struck toward the fire spirit ape's eyes. Blood sprayed, and the fire spirit ape let out a mournful howl. However, before the sound could fully escape, the dagger had pierced its throat, silencing it instantly. The fire spirit ape's massive body crashed heavily to the ground, crushing the rocks beneath. Chen landed beside it, wiped the blood from his dagger, and turned to the still shocked Xun'er. Are you all right? I'm fine. Xun'er shook her head gently. Meanwhile, Mo Ling and the others looked on in a daze. They seemed unable to process how quickly Chen had taken down the fire spirit ape. It wasn't just them. The members of the Thunderstorm squad were equally stunned. Chen's reaction speed and swift action were impressive. Impressive. This fire spirit ape probably has the strength of someone in the later stages of the spirit movement realm. Lei Cheng gave Chen a thumbs up and laughed. I only managed it because its speed was slowed by the smoke. Otherwise, it would have been harder. Chen shook his head, realizing that although the fire spirit ape had resisted the sedative, it was still affected. The effect of the drug is limited. Fire spirit apes at the later stages of the spirit movement realm can resist it. I estimate that there are at least 20 such fire spirit apes deeper in the valley. However, even if they haven't been fully sedated, their strength will be reduced, so they shouldn't be too difficult to handle. Lei Cheng nodded. Then, he lowered his body, his gaze fixed ahead, his expression turning serious. The real problem is that big guy. Chen narrowed his eyes and followed Lei Cheng's gaze. At the end of the valley, The mist had cleared somewhat, revealing a much larger fire spirit ape. It was covered in red fur, its body glowing as if clad in fiery armor. Although it was half-sitting, it exuded a ferocious aura, and its spiritual energy fluctuations were far beyond those of ordinary fire spirit apes. Clearly, this massive ape was the leader of the valley, the fire spirit ape king. Mu Chen felt the spiritual pressure emanating from it and frowned. Mo Ling and the others also showed traces of fear in their eyes. After all, it was a mid-tier spirit beast. Mu Chen studied the fire spirit ape king for a moment before looking past it to the mountain wall, where a crack about 10 feet long appeared. From within the crack, a small tree, about a yard in height, had grown out. The tree was a pale white, almost like jade, and amid its green leaves, small round fruits with a jade-like sheen could be seen. Even from a distance, their faint fragrance could be smelled, refreshing the mind. Indeed, it's the jade spirit tree. Mu Chen's eyes lit up. It looked like the tree was already mature. Judging by the number of fruits, there were probably more than 30, which made this deal incredibly tempting. Little brother, I'll lead 5 of my team members to deal with the fire spirit ape king. The other 5 will join your companions in handling the fire spirit apes that have woken up. You, on the other hand, wait for the right opportunity to use the spirit-breaking bead and try to kill the fire spirit ape king with a single strike. Lei Cheng said after observing the situation for a while, his tone serious. Understood. Mu Chen nodded, then thought for a moment. However, if something goes wrong, I suggest we retreat immediately. If you insist on going after the jade spirit fruits, I'll take my team and leave first. As for the spirit-breaking bead, I'll consider it a loss. After all, while the fruits are valuable, life is even more so. Lei Cheng smiled wryly at this and nodded. If it came to that, they would just have to consider it bad luck. Prepare to act. Lei Cheng waved his hand, and the 5 members of the thunderstorm squad surrounded by spiritual energy carefully advanced toward the fire spirit ape king. Although the valley was still shrouded in mist, the fire spirit ape king was clearly no ordinary ape. As soon as the team closed in within several dozen feet of it, the ape sensed their presence. Its crimson eyes fixed on them, and a brutal look filled its gaze. Clearly, these intruders had provoked it. Roar! An enraged roar echoed from its mouth. The fire spirit ape king reached out with its long arms, grabbing a massive rock and hurling it at Lei Cheng. The wind howled as the rock flew, its weight causing it to carry immense force. Kill! Lei Cheng bellowed, shooting forward. He grabbed a blood-red greatsword that appeared in his hand, and with a surge of spiritual energy, he swung the sword. The blade sliced through the rock with ease, but he didn't stop there. His body surged forward, leading the charge directly at the fire spirit ape king. The rest of the thunderstorm squad quickly followed suit. Boom! Boom! The two sides clashed in an instant, and a fierce battle broke out. Waves of spiritual energy surged, followed by the rapid flashes of sword blades that struck the fire spirit ape king. While Lei Cheng and his team engaged the fire spirit ape king, Mo Ling and the others worked together with the other 5 thunderstorm squad members to prevent the awakened fire spirit apes from interfering. Mu Chen stood a short distance away, his eyes fixed on the battle. Between his fingers, the fire spirit breaking bead glowed with violent spiritual energy. This bead had the power to heavily injure someone in the spirit wheel stage, but he only had one. He had to seize the perfect moment to use it, or this mission would fail. Bang! In the fierce fight, the 5 thunderstorm squad members, exhausted and wounded, managed to leave a few scratches on the fire spirit ape king's body. However, their hands, which gripped their weapons, were now covered in blood from the backlash. If it hadn't been for Lei Cheng taking most of the fire spirit ape king's attacks head-on, they would never have gotten this close. Thunder blade slaughter! Lei Cheng shouted through gritted teeth, his arms aching from the prolonged battle. Boom! The shout had barely finished when the 5 squad members surged forward. Their great swords crackled with lightning, and with all their might, they slashed downward. Boom! The valley seemed to tremble at that moment. The fire spirit ape king, whose already massive form looked even more ferocious now, had a hideous beast face full of brutality, its appearance extremely menacing. Mu Qian, Lei Cheng, and the others looked grimly at the increasingly terrifying Fire Spirit Ape King. Who would have thought that the Fire Spirit Ape King would break through at such a critical moment? Judging by its aura, it was likely that the Fire Spirit Ape King had already reached the peak of the intermediate Spirit Beast level, comparable to a late Spirit Wheel Stage expert. Late Spirit Wheel Stage? Mu Qian and Lei Cheng exchanged a glance, both inwardly bitter. How could they be so unlucky to encounter such a rare occurrence? Captain, what should we do? Lin Zhong and the others asked urgently, their faces pale. Lei Cheng thought for a moment and gritted his teeth. The Fire Spirit Ape King has just broken through, but it's also heavily injured. We'll try one more time. If we still can't deal with it, we retreat. Lin Zhong and the others nodded in agreement. This sudden change was completely unexpected. Although they were reluctant to leave the Jade Spirit Fruit behind, their lives were more important. Mu Chen also signaled to Xun'er and the others in the distance, signaling them to retreat immediately if things went wrong. Roar. At the same time that Mu Chen warned Xun'er and the others, the Fire Spirit Ape King suddenly let out an enraged roar. Its blood-red eyes, filled with brutality, locked onto Mu Chen. It seemed to have a clear memory of Mu Chen, who had inflicted heavy injuries on it earlier. The Fire Spirit Ape King had a strong grudge and, with its limited intelligence, had firmly placed Mu Chen on its must-destroy list. Without hesitation, it struck first. Its enormous ape arm grabbed a massive boulder several dozen feet in size and hurled it at Mu Chen with deadly force. Mu Chen reacted swiftly, his feet barely touching the ground as he nimbly leaped backward, narrowly avoiding the Fire Spirit Ape King's wild attack. He dared not let the beast make contact with him. With its strength at the late Spirit Wheel stage, even a glancing blow would likely be fatal or cause serious injury. Seeing the Fire Spirit Ape King charge directly at Mu Chen, Lei Cheng and the others quickly sprang into action. However, they were stunned to find that no matter how they attacked, the Fire Spirit Ape King paid them no mind. It was entirely focused on ruthlessly smashing at Mu Chen, forcing him into a desperate situation. Roar. Seeing Mu Chen skillfully evade its attacks, the Fire Spirit Ape King grew even more furious. It suddenly released a high-pitched, ear-piercing scream that echoed throughout the valley. Then, Lei Cheng and the others were horrified to realize that the Fire Spirit Apes they had put to sleep earlier were showing signs of waking up. This discovery drained the color from their faces. If over 100 Fire Spirit Apes woke up in the valley, they would have no chance of escaping alive. Captain, if the Fire Spirit Ape King keeps roaring, all those Fire Spirit Apes will wake up? Lin Zhong exclaimed in alarm. Mu Chen also noticed the situation and his expression grew even more serious. His eyes flickered as he glanced at the Jade Spirit Tree within a crack in the mountain wall. Clenching his teeth, he said, Lei Cheng, I'll lead the Fire Spirit Ape King away. You guys grab the Jade Spirit Fruit as quickly as you can. What? Lei Cheng and the others were immediately stunned. The Fire Spirit Ape King was at the late Spirit Wheel stage, and Mu Chen was only at the mid-Spirit Movement stage. It was undoubtedly extremely dangerous for him to lead it away alone. There's no time. The Fire Spirit Ape King has locked onto me. You won't be able to pull it away. With that, Mu Chen's voice fell, and a dark spiritual energy wrapped around his legs. His speed suddenly skyrocketed, and his body shot forward like an arrow, heading straight for the edge of the valley. Behind him, the Fire Spirit Ape King immediately roared and chased after him without hesitation. Lei Cheng and the others stood frozen for a moment, watching Mu Chen lead the Fire Spirit Ape King out of the valley. Finally, Lei Cheng gritted his teeth and said, Hurry! We don't have much time. Lin Zhong, you and the others block those Fire Spirit Apes that are waking up. I'll go for the Jade Spirit Fruit. Understood. Lin Zhong and the others wiped the blood from the corners of their mouths, nodded urgently, and charged toward the Fire Spirit Apes that were groggily getting back on their feet. Lei Cheng took one last look outside the valley, letting out a bitter smile. He could only pray that Mu Chen would be fine. Otherwise, if the others came looking for them, they would be in big trouble too. Boom, boom. In the forest, the earth shook violently as a massive, fiery red silhouette filled with brutal energy charged through, uprooting trees along its path. The commotion naturally caught the attention of some spirit beasts in the forest. However, the fire spirit ape king had already reached the peak of the intermediate spirit beast level, making it one of the strongest beings in the periphery of the northern spirit wilderness. The surrounding spirit beasts, intimidated by its ferocity, dared not approach and could only watch as one man and one beast charged deeper into the wilderness. This damn beast just won't give up. After nearly 10 minutes of relentless sprinting, Chen noticed that the fire spirit ape king showed no signs of giving up. He couldn't help but curse under his breath. Whoosh! As he cursed, a fierce gust of wind suddenly surged from behind. He turned to see the fire spirit ape king hoisting an enormous tree and hurling it straight at him. Chen immediately dove forward, rolling several times across the ground before narrowly avoiding the massive projectile as it crashed down with a tremor. As he tumbled through a patch of wild grass, he reached out and swiftly plucked a handful of black grass leaves, stuffing them into his robes before continuing his desperate dash. His black eyes flickered with calculation as he ran. He hadn't volunteered to lure the fire spirit ape king away just to show off. This was something he had plenty of experience with. Back on the spirit road, he had encountered situations like this more times than he could count. I should be getting close to the inner region of the northern spirit wilderness. There should be spirit beasts here that can rival the fire spirit ape king. These creatures are highly territorial. Once they discover an intruder, they won't let it off easily. That'll be my chance to shake this brute off. Chen's mind raced as he pushed his spiritual energy to its limits. The Great Pagoda art activated at full force, and perhaps due to the life or death pressure, its circulation speed seemed to accelerate significantly. Waves of spiritual energy surged through his limbs, keeping him from exhausting too quickly. However, no matter how powerful the Great Pagoda art was, Chen was still only at the mid-spirit movement stage. Compared to an intermediate spirit beast at the late spirit wheel stage, the gap was simply too vast. As time dragged on, he began to feel his stamina depleting. Roar! Just as Chen felt his situation worsening, a deep, beastly howl suddenly echoed from the distant forest. There was a clear tone of warning in the cry. Finally, hearing the roar, Chen's eyes flashed with excitement. He sped up abruptly and leaped into the dense jungle ahead. The moment he entered, he quickly retrieved the handful of black grass leaves from his robes, crushing them in his palm. A sharp, pungent black liquid splattered across his body. Just as Chen finished, a massive black shadow suddenly emerged in front of him. However, its gaze didn't linger on the insignificant human. It was locked onto the fire spirit ape king charging in from behind. A drake leopard. Chen narrowed his eyes at the creature. It had the form of a black panther, a single sharp horn on its head, and a body encased in an incredibly tough carapace. Its tail, resembling an iron-spiked whip, lashed through the air, radiating a wild and violent spiritual energy. Chen frowned slightly. Though the drake leopard was also an intermediate spirit beast, its strength only seemed to be at the early spirit wheel stage, far weaker than the fire spirit ape king. Roar! The drake leopard let out a deep, threatening growl, its gaping maw displaying sharp fangs as it attempted to intimidate its approaching adversary. But the fire spirit ape king was already consumed by rage. Nothing would stop it from tearing Chen apart, not even this beast. Seeing the drake leopard stand in its way, it let out a furious roar and leaped forward. Fiery red spiritual energy surged into its massive palm, forming a blazing force akin to a small meteor, which then slammed viciously into the drake leopard's flank. Boom! The impact created a massive crater in the ground. Trees were shattered and sent flying. Chen could only watch in shock as the drake leopard let out a pained, agonized howl, its body flung through the air. The single strike had completely snapped its waist in half, its armored hide utterly crushed. What a ruthless beast! Chen took a sharp breath. The fire spirit ape king had killed the drake leopard in a single blow. The fire spirit ape king struck down the drake leopard with a single blow, its crimson, violent eyes then locking onto Chen. Realizing the danger, Mu Chen prepared to flee once more, but suddenly, an ear-splitting roar, filled with pure fury, rang out from deep within the forest. Roar. Within that roar was a powerful surge of spiritual energy that seemed to stir the very air, sending a forceful wind rushing through the area. The pressure from the spiritual energy made Mu Chen's face change instantly. A high-level spirit beast? The power of a divine soul stage expert. Boom. A silver shadow shot out from the forest, racing forward with terrifying speed. Within moments, it appeared in the open space before Mu Chen. He quickly lowered his body, gazing ahead. The silver shadow resembled the drake leopard he had seen earlier, except it was much larger, with its horn now shining silver. This is a high-level spirit beast, the silver-horned drake leopard? Mu Chen's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at the lifeless drake leopard, then at the silver-horned drake leopard's bloodshot, vengeful gaze fixed on the fire spirit ape king. It dawned on him. This fire spirit ape king had killed the silver-horned drake leopard's cub. Quietly, Mu Chen crouched low, covering himself with the pungent black liquid to mask his scent. He held his breath, giving the fire spirit ape king a sympathetic look. Buddy, you're done for. The spiritual energy in the depths of the forest surged violently, like a howling wind. The immense pressure caused all sounds to vanish within the forest. Some spirit beasts in the distance fled in terror, sensing the silver-horned drake leopard's fury. The fire spirit ape king's crimson eyes faded somewhat under the weight of this spiritual pressure. Its ugly beastly face showed a faint trace of fear. Although it had just reached the peak of the intermediate spirit beast stage, the silver-horned drake leopard before it was a bona fide high-level spirit beast. The fire spirit ape king, its massive body shrinking slightly, stared at the silver-horned drake leopard in deep fear. Its body seemed to have the urge to retreat, clearly contemplating fleeing. Roar. But the silver-horned drake leopard, having just lost its cub, was not about to let the killer escape so easily. Its cold, beastly eyes burned with rage and cruelty. Its sharp claws scraped the ground as violent surges of spiritual energy erupted around it. Boom. The fire spirit ape king suddenly turned and fled. The ferocity it had shown in chasing Mu Chen vanished in an instant. Faced with the threat of death, it had clearly forgotten all about Mu Chen. The silver-horned drake leopard coldly watched the fire spirit ape king flee, its enormous body lowering slightly. In the next instant, its spiritual energy erupted like a flood, wrapping its form in a dazzling silver glow. With a muffled sound, the silver-horned drake leopard transformed into a silver streak of light, shooting forward. Whoosh! The silver light tore through the air at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Before Mu Chen could react, a sharp ripping sound came from afar. Looking up, he saw the fire spirit ape king had halted its flight. A gaping blood hole about half a meter wide appeared in its back. Its insides were completely gone. On the ground in front of the fire spirit ape king, the silver-horned drake leopard flicked its body to shake off the blood, then slowly walked back. Bang! The massive body of the fire spirit ape king fell heavily to the ground, blood pouring out. Clearly, its breath had completely ceased. One strike, instant kill. Mu Chen's heart skipped a beat. So this is the power of a high-level spirit beast, he marveled in awe. But his body remained motionless, lying flat, his breath held to its minimum as he drew all his spiritual energy into his chi. If the silver-horned drake leopard discovered him now, his fate would likely be no better than the fire spirit ape king's. Fortunately, the silver-horned drake leopard, in its grief and rage, showed no interest in Mu Chen. Instead, it returned to the side of the dead drake leopard cub, nuzzling its body before letting out a mournful cry. It then gently lifted the corpse and began walking slowly toward the depths of the forest. Mu Chen watched the silver-horned drake leopard disappear into the distance, waiting for about 10 minutes in silence before cautiously rising to his feet. He surveyed the surroundings warily, then quickly moved to the fire spirit ape king's body. This is the spirit essence of the fire spirit ape king. Within that flame-like glow, a miniature fire spirit ape could be seen, radiating a formidable spiritual energy fluctuation. Mu Chen flipped his hand and tucked the spirit essence into his robe. Then, with a swift motion, he used a dagger to sever the fire spirit ape king's head. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly paused. After a moment of thought, he turned and made his way to where the drake leopard had perished. The ground there was still soaked with thick, crimson blood. Taking out a small bottle, Mu Chun carefully collected the blood before stowing it away. Only then did he turn and leave swiftly. While Mu Chun was handling his predicament, trouble was also brewing within the valley. Roar! Roar! The once quiet valley was now in chaos. Enraged, massive crimson apes glared at the humans deep within the valley. One by one, they grabbed enormous boulders and hurled them furiously. The sheer number of apes forced the trapped humans into a desperate struggle. Damn it! These beasts have all woken up. Lin Zhong and the others dodged frantically, their expressions dark as they stared at the dense horde of flame apes in the distance. Even after Mu Qian had lured away the fire spirit ape king, they had hastened their pace, yet the hypnotized flame apes had still begun waking up one after another. Now, they were completely trapped. What do we do now? Tang Xun'er and Demo Ling were visibly pale. Unlike Lin Zhong and his experienced group, their mental fortitude wasn't as strong. Facing this overwhelming sight, their legs almost gave out beneath them. We break through, Lei Cheng said grimly. A bundle was strapped to his back, from which a faint green glow emanated, carrying a lingering, fragrant scent. Lin Zhong, take care of them. Make sure no one falls behind. Lei Cheng's tone was serious. He and his team were veterans, accustomed to such dangers, but Tang Xun'er and the others were complete novices. If they got separated and fell into the midst of the flame apes, they would be torn apart in an instant. Understood. Lin Zhong and the others nodded. They no longer looked down on these students for their lack of experience. After all, Mu Qian had single-handedly lured away the fire spirit ape king, a display of courage that even they found astonishing. If not for him, their group would have been doomed. Move! Lei Cheng gripped his long blade, his eyes sharp as he surged forward. Powerful spiritual energy erupted from him as he charged straight into the horde of flame apes, his blade slashing out, carving open a path through the swarm. The members of the Thunderstorm squad followed closely behind, keeping Tang Xun'er and the others in the center. Everyone pushed their spiritual energy to the limit, forming a defensive perimeter of sharp, blazing blades that repelled the incoming flame apes. Boom, boom, boom. Despite having an early spirit will stage powerhouse like Lei Cheng leading the charge, the sheer number of flame apes made the battle overwhelming. It wasn't long before some members of the Thunderstorm squad were injured. Yet they gritted their teeth and pressed on, their hands tightly gripping blood-soaked blades. Damn it! Lei Cheng roared, cleaving a flame ape in half, but even more surged forward. A growing sense of anxiety crept into his heart. Were they really going to die here? Tang Xun'er and Mo Ling's faces were deathly pale as they watched the vicious apes closing in. Just as despair began to settle in, something unexpected happened. The flame apes in front of them suddenly grew restless. Then, as if terrified by something, they retreated in panic, their shrieks filled with fear. What's going on? Lei Cheng and the others were stunned. Their gazes turned toward the disturbance, only to see a slender figure swiftly emerging. It's Mu Qian. Tang Xun'er and the others gasped in shock, then quickly broke into relieved excitement. Even though they knew Mu Qian was nowhere near as strong as Lei Cheng, for some reason, his presence alone filled them with a confidence that far surpassed what Lei Cheng could provide. What's that in his hand? Lin Zhong narrowed his eyes. He could clearly see that Mu Qian was holding something massive, and whatever it was, the flame apes seemed utterly terrified of it. It's a head. Lei Cheng's breath hitched. Then, as realization struck, his eyes widened in horror. What? Lin Zhong and the others were stunned, their eyes filled with shock. Did Mu Qian actually kill the fire spirit ape king? Come quickly. While they were still in shock, Mu Qian called out loudly to them, holding up the ugly, blood-dripping head of the fire spirit ape king. The surrounding fire spirit apes immediately retreated in fear. To them, The fire spirit ape king was a terrifying presence, and now, to have someone capable of killing it, how strong must they be? The ape's lack of intelligence prevented them from thinking deeply. They could only instinctively feel fear. Run! Lei Cheng was overjoyed. He quickly waved his hand, signaling everyone to speed up and break through the encirclement of the fire spirit apes, finally reaching Mu Chen's side. As they got closer, they could clearly see the grotesque head still dripping with fresh blood. It was indeed the fire spirit ape king. Lei Cheng and Lin Zhong exchanged a glance, both recognizing the shock in each other's eyes. How had Mu Chen done it? But Mu Chen paid no attention to their thoughts. He quickly led them out of the valley, placing the fire spirit ape king's head at the entrance, scaring the fire spirit apes into not daring to come out. The group turned and fled, running until they had moved far from the valley. Exhausted, they all collapsed onto the ground, even Lei Cheng covered in sweat, gasping for breath. Mu Chen also slumped down under a tree, feeling like his bones were about to fall apart. This was indeed a close call. He almost didn't make it. Are you all right? Tang Xun'er came to Mu Chen's side, her bright eyes gazing at him with admiration. Clearly, today's events had left her deeply impressed. I'm fine. Mu Chen smiled, then looked up to see Lei Cheng, Lin Zhong, and Mo Ling all staring at him in shock. They still couldn't quite grasp the fact that Mu Chen had saved them by holding up the fire spirit ape king's head. Stop staring. I'm just lucky. I don't actually have the strength to kill the fire spirit ape king. Mu Chen shook his head helplessly, then turned to Lei Cheng and smiled. But big brother Lei Cheng, the mission was completed perfectly. Now, I think it's time for us to split the spoils, right? Haha. Lei Cheng laughed aloud, taking off his pack and opening it. Immediately, a brilliant emerald light burst forth, and a fragrant aroma filled the air, causing everyone's eyes to brighten. Mu Chen's gaze also fell on the contents of the pack. He looked at the rounded, plump jade spirit fruits, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. After all the hard work, he had finally gotten something worthwhile. The pack was spread out on the ground, and the emerald light radiated from the jade spirit fruits, which were round, shiny, and glowing. The enticing fragrance made everyone's throats involuntarily gulp, their eyes burning with desire. There are 30 jade spirit fruits in total. We could have gathered more, but the fire spirit ape king ruined many of them. Lei Cheng chuckled, then separated 15 of the fruits and said, Mu Chen, although you only asked for 30%, today's success is truly thanks to you. These 15 jade spirit fruits are yours. We can't take advantage of you. Let's just stick to the 30%. All right, thank you, big brother Lei Cheng. Mu Chen shook his head, about to decline. But seeing Lei Cheng's determined expression, he could only smile helplessly, accepting the 15 jade spirit fruits. He then looked at Mo Ling and the others, who were eagerly eyeing him, and smiled. You all contributed a lot this time too. How about each of you gets one jade spirit fruit? Heh. Mo Ling and the others couldn't help but grin. Even Zhongli and Tang Yong looked excited. When they received the jade spirit fruits from Mu Chen, their faces flushed, and they wanted to say something, but felt a bit shy, so they just kept smiling foolishly. Here, you get one too. Mu Chen also handed a jade spirit fruit to Tang Xun'er. The young girl held the fruit in her delicate hand and smiled sweetly. After Mu Chen distributed the 15 jade spirit fruits, he still had 6 left. He looked at the cool, jade-like fruits in his hand and couldn't help but smile. A group of people sat in the forest, resting. Having just returned with their haul, everyone was in a good mood, and their relationships had become much closer. Mo Ling and the others seized the opportunity to ask the Thunderstorm Squad for tips on hunting spirit beasts, while Lin Zhong and his companions excitedly shared some of their dangerous adventures. The young Mo Ling and the others listened with wide eyes, their excitement evident. Mu Chen smiled as he observed their camaraderie. At this moment, Lei Cheng walked over, handing Mu Chen a bottle of strong liquor, grinning as he said, So, how about it? Can you drink? Mu Chen wasn't fond of liquor but didn't refuse. He took a swig, and the fiery sensation made his handsome face flush a little. He couldn't help but cough a few times. Drink less, Tang Xun'er said, quickly patting Mu Chen's back with her delicate hand, a bit of reproach in her tone. Heh, I've met many young people over the years, but none as impressive as Brother Mu Chen. If you're free sometime, come join our thunderstorm squad, Lei Ching joked. His father is the lord of the Mu domain. If you try to take him away as an adventurer, Mu Shu won't let you off easily. Tang Xun'er rolled her eyes at Lei Cheng and said crossly, "The lord of the Mu domain?" Lei Ching froze, then looked at Mu Chen in surprise. "So, Brother Mu Chen is the young master of the Mu domain? Looks like I've misjudged you. Heh, I met Domain Lord Mu Feng when I was with my older brother. Truly, a tiger father doesn't have a dog son." Mu Chen shot Tang Xun'er a glance. The girl stuck out her tongue playfully, having let slip something she didn't mean to say. "Brother Mu Chen, we'll be staying in the Northern Spirit Wilderness for the time being. If you need any help, just let us know. Consider this us returning the favor," Lei Ching said. "No need to be so polite, Lei brother. Since we're working together, I'll certainly do my best to help," Mu Chen replied with a smile. "Cooperation is one thing, but you did save our thunderstorm squad. That's a fact," Lei Ching said seriously. Mu Chen could only shake his head helplessly, though he couldn't help but feel a bit more favorable towards this straightforward, hearty man. After chatting for a long while, the sky grew darker. Mu Chen, seeing this, led Tang Xun'er, and Mo Ling, and the others to say goodbye to the thunderstorm squad and headed toward the campsite. Along the way, Mo Ling and the others were still caught up in the excitement. Although today's events had been dangerous, the thrill they felt afterward had them buzzing with energy, constantly discussing the intense battle in the valley. Mu Chen couldn't help but feel a little helpless at their enthusiasm. After all, the dangers that excited them were nothing compared to what he had faced on the Spirit Road, so he could treat it all with a calm heart. The journey back was much smoother, and after about half an hour, they were close to the campsite. The group of young people breathed a sigh of relief as they looked at the large number of tents in the distance. Mu Chen's gaze also turned towards the campsite, but his brow furrowed when he noticed a dozen figures standing at the edge of the woods. The figure leading them was all too familiar. It was Lu Yang and Chen Tong, followed by a group of laughing young men, clearly students from the Western Academy. "It's Chen Tong and the others." Mo Ling noticed the group and froze for a moment. His expression darkened as he said, "Mu Chen, it seems they're coming for you." As soon as Mu Chen's group saw Chen Tong and his companions, the latter walked up with a displeased look. They immediately blocked Mu Chen and the others' way. "Chen Tong, what do you want?" Mo Ling asked, frowning. "Heh, nothing much. I just wanted to have a little chat with him." "Mo Ling, this isn't your concern. I suggest you don't interfere. If you offend Lu Gu, it might not be good for you either," Chen Tong said with a smile. The Lu Gu he referred to was, of course, Lu Mubai. Hearing this, Mo Ling's face changed slightly, clearly wary of Lu Mubai. "Zhangli, Ting Yong, you two should leave as well. I know you have some issues with Mu Chen, so why not let us settle it for you?" Chen Tong turned to Jiang Li and the others. He was confident in his calculations. There were many of them, and besides Tang Xun'er, the others weren't particularly close to Mu Chen. It was said that Jiang Li and the others even had some grievances with Mu Chen, so they were unlikely to help him. However, just as he thought he had everything figured out, he saw Jiang Li and Tang Yong merely glance coldly at him. Although Jiang Li and his companion had previously been at odds with Mu Chen, today's events had completely changed their perception of him. Whether it was Mu Chen stepping in to help them or his actions in the valley afterward, the once proud youths couldn't help but feel admiration. The previous disdain had long vanished, and calling him Brother Mu now came without any hesitation. "You guys," Chen Yong, Lu Yang, and the others were momentarily stunned. Their faces darkened as they watched Jiang Li, Mo Ling, and the others standing protectively around Mu Chen, openly hostile toward them. It was hard to believe. Mu Chen was just a newcomer to the Eastern Academy's heavenly class. Why were even the senior students standing up for him? Mu Chen, however, remained calm, watching the scene unfold in silence. He simply patted Jiang Li and the others on the shoulder. "Let's go." He didn't bother speaking to Chen Tong or Lu Yang. This level of disregard made Chen Tong's expression even uglier. With a low growl, he snapped, "Trying to leave? You're getting too cocky, kid." As his words fell, his hand shot out, reaching directly for Mu Chen's collar. Whoosh! The moment he moved, a chilling gleam flickered in Mu Chen's black eyes. With a swift turn of his hand, a streak of black light flashed. Just as Chen Tong's fingers were about to grasp his collar, a dark dagger, its blade still stained with blood, was already pressed against his throat. The icy sensation at his neck made Chen Tong's pupils shrink violently. He trembled slightly, gritting his teeth. "What do you think you're doing? You really don't believe I'd kill you?" Mu Chen's voice was soft as he looked at Chen Tong. Despite his calm tone, an unmistakable chill seeped through. For some reason, both Chen Tong and Lu Yong felt a bone-deep coldness, a true killing intent. The youths behind Chen Tong were also stunned by Mu Chen's pitch-black eyes, devoid of any emotion. No one dared to make a sound. "What are you all doing?" A deep voice suddenly shattered the tense silence. The gathered youths quickly turned to see Teacher Mo standing nearby, his stern gaze sweeping over them. Teacher Mo Ling, and the others hurriedly greeted him with respect. Mu Chen, upon seeing Teacher Mo, withdrew his dagger. The cold indifference on his striking face faded, replaced by a gentle smile, making him seem entirely harmless. "Teacher Mo, Mu Chen was trying to kill me." Chen Tong's face was flushed with anger as he glared at Mu Chen. "You think I didn't see what happened?" Teacher Mo shot him a cold glance. Chen Tong froze, then awkwardly rubbed his nose. Still fuming, he shot a resentful look at Mu Chen before stomping away with his group, their defeat written all over their faces. "You should all return to camp as well," Teacher Mo said to Mo Ling, Tang Xun'er, and the others. They hesitated for a moment before gradually dispersing. Once they were gone, Teacher Mo walked over to Mu Chen. Looking at the boy's calm and composed face, he couldn't help but shake his head. "You really went and did something that dangerous with that adventure team, huh? Teacher Mo knows what we did?" Mu Chen was slightly surprised. "Tan Shan came back and told me, so I rushed over. I didn't show myself, but I saw everything." Teacher Mo fixed his gaze on Mu Chen, still somewhat shaken by what he had witnessed. He had seen Mu Chen lure away the fire spirit Ape King. Initially, he had been prepared to intervene, but to his astonishment, the boy had managed to draw out the silver-horned drake leopard instead. This maneuver, using one beast to eliminate another, was executed so flawlessly that even he couldn't help but be impressed. "So, Teacher Mo was secretly protecting me all along? If I had known, I wouldn't have had to run around the forest like that." Mu Chen sighed helplessly. If he had been aware that a divine soul stage expert was watching over him, he certainly wouldn't have let himself be chased so miserably. "You little rascal," Teacher Mo chuckled, shaking his head. He knew that despite Mu Chen's young age, he was highly cautious. His willingness to cooperate with the Thunderstorm Squad had likely stemmed from his confidence that they wouldn't dare betray him. "Forget it. You made it back safely. That's what matters. Let's return to camp." With that, Teacher Mo waved his hand and turned toward the camp. Mu Chen smiled and followed. As they passed through the forest and entered the camp, Mu Chen's gaze swept across the area before stopping at a spot not far away. There, dozens of burly figures stood, their auras imposing, a faint killing intent lingering around them. It was clear they were no ordinary group. "That's..." Teacher Mo also frowned at the unfamiliar group, but upon seeing the emblem on their chests, he muttered in surprise, "People from the Lu domain?"